Hello, everyone, and welcome back to second news update to this news summary from Moscow. Today is 28th of October. Now it's 5 past 7 in the evening Moscow time, and as always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments that Russian media is focused on, and hopefully you will find their update informative, interesting, useful, and if so, please like the video, dear friends, and leave some commentary. This might help to deal with the algorithm to potentially reach wider audience. And if you can, to switch from YouTube to Rumble, please do so. Uh, I do. It will be great if our channel or on Rumble will develop further, and if I will have opportunity to reach wider audience there. It's 50 plus million users, regular users on Rumble, isn't it? So there is potential to grow, while YouTube is suppressing my channel so much so that I don't really even hope now anymore to further develop this project on YouTube. Channel barely is growing, but anyways, as always, after new segment, I will react on questions or comments if there will be any through super chat. That is available on Rumble or through some other support pages, PayPal, Boosty, right? And so, yes, before I start, I want to highlight, dear friends, that we have two new members on Boosty, Double Out and Corinne. Thank you very much, dear friends, for your support, for subscribing, to join our community on Boosty. And hopefully our community will grow on Patreon and Boosty. That will be a great support, of course. And also many thanks to Bold Eagle. Unfortunately, I missed a donation to highlight donation last Sunday from Bold Eagle, and I will do it now. Thank you very much, Bold Eagle, for $20 donation last Sunday. Okay, that's been said, dear friends. So let's start our news segment now. And well, I'm going to start with sort of a breaking news, although we are living in such a times that almost anything nowadays can count as a breaking news. But this one is something of importance, I guess, because this might be a big step towards further escalation in this war that West is waging against Russia. And the news is that Macron allegedly already authorized French militaries to create a 2,000 strong expeditionary corps and deploy it into control their territory. Information is coming from Russian Foreign Intelligence Service. So it's official. Let me give you some details on that. French President Emmanuel Macron is preparing to intervene militarily in Ukraine, Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, SVR, has claimed. In a statement published on Monday, the agency's press department suggested that Macron desperately wants to leave his mark on history. Okay. And we have a quote from the statement: having failed as a politician and despaired of ever pulling their country out of a longer social and economic crisis, he does not give up their hope to go down in history as a military leader, SVR claims, adding that Macron dreams of military intervention in Ukraine and is known for fantasizing about Napoleon's laws. And by the way, this is SVR is talking about, like Foreign Intelligence Service, right? And very much possible that they have some assets around Macron, right, in Ellis Palace or somewhere there, and they know what they are talking about, right? So maybe that's exactly the case, and Macron is fantasizing about being this war leader or military leader of some kind. And this is extremely dangerous, of course, because these delusional elements that are put in charge, formally at least, in charge of Western countries might actually provoke a full-scale war between NATO and Russia. So according to SVR, French General Staff has reportedly already been instructed to form a contingent of up to 2,000 troops for deployment in Ukraine. So order is given already. The core of this force is expected to be made up of troops from the French Foreign Legion, mainly recruited from Latin American countries. Not surprisingly, because, well, unfortunately, there is clear evidences that due to poor living conditions, due to some other reasons, many people from Latin American countries, from Colombia, from other countries, are joining all sorts of PMCs, and hundreds of them actually end up fighting against Russia on to control their territories, and many of them already been neutralized. And therefore, French Legion probably before this information became available, I mean, way before that, began recruiting. And sound is okay. Okay. So French Legion probably way before began recruiting. No, turn it on. Light, no? Okay, there might be some issues with the lighting, but anyways, there is a high probability that hundreds, potentially thousands of citizens of Latin American country might already be recruited by foreign legion and trained, and who knows, some of them could be already deployed on the line of contact or somewhere on key control territory. And when I was reading this news, dear friends, what came to my mind is that a few days ago, if you remember, I reported, it was TASS News Agency, if I remember correctly, TASS News Agency's information, which was based on Russian security services, Russian militaries, that a large camp of foreign mercenaries were found in the Kharkov region, it was, isn't it? And then, as a result of Russian strikes, some 600, up to 600 foreign mercenaries were neutralized. This is just like a few days ago, right? Report from a few days ago. And who knows, maybe when I say possibly some of those French legionnaires were already on a key control territory, maybe they were exactly in that massive camp, because you're not gonna keep 600 military personnel or more than that even in some small area, right? So it well might be that some of these troops already been deployed and already suffered some serious casualties. SVR stated also that the Legion personnel are already deployed in the regions of Poland bordering Ukraine. But if they are in Poland, well, might be in a key control territory too, where they are undergoing intensive joint combat training and receiving weapons and equipment. Their transfer to central Ukraine has reportedly been scheduled in the near future. Russian SVR also said that France has already begun preparing for casualties, with hundreds of additional hospital beds reportedly being created to accommodate wounded soldiers, while French medics are said to be receiving field training to handle combat injuries. So this is a big deal. It will, as I already said, dear friends, it will might be already that those troops are on the key control territory and even suffered some casualties. Foreign intelligence service of the Russian Federation is not saying that those troops already are on key control territory, but could be case. Maybe foreign service, maybe SVR is not saying those troops already being deployed, because in that case, of course, Moscow have to react on it, some big time, right? Because this is clearly act of war, and maybe foreign intelligence service is just avoiding to put Kremlin in that situation when something has to be done, right? Well, might be their case. So big step towards the escalation. I reported earlier, dear friends, that there was instructions given in France to hospitals to be ready to receive hundreds of casualties, and there was also similar reports from Germany that hospitals, medical facilities, basically, not just military ones, but also civilian ones, were given order to be ready to receive hundreds of casualties daily. So now we have this report about French troops. Who knows, maybe tomorrow we will learn that Germany is also deploying troops, and UK and others, right? Big step towards the escalation. And you might wonder, what is the Moscow's reaction even on this report, right? even if those troops not yet being deployed on a Kyiv-controlled territory. What is the Moscow's response on this report of Russian state institution intelligence service? And well, we have information on that too. Kremlin called France's plans to send troops to Ukraine alarming. Okay, let me give you some details. So, Presidential Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov called the reports of France's plans to deploy troops to Ukraine alarming. As for the information from the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, it is alarming, Peskov said. He also emphasized that overwhelming majority of the EU countries are in their militaristic mainstream. Okay. Another quote here: our troops are constantly listening to foreign speech and the languages on their radios along the line of contact. So these foreigners are there. We are eliminating them. He noted, commenting on SWR report, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova, on the other hand, advised President Emmanuel Macron to send French soldiers to guard the country's museums, where robberies have recently become more frequent. Russia emphasized that any deployment of NATO member countries' troops to Ukraine was unacceptable and risked a sharp escalation. Moscow called statements about the possible deployment of troops an incitement to continue their hostilities. So that's the response, by the way, from Moscow, from press spokesman of the Russian president, from a foreign ministry, that this is alarming and escalatory step, and yes, that's about it. What else should we expect, really? I mean, I don't know. So interesting news. Soon probably we will receive some more information about these developments from France, most likely, when hundreds of casualties from this expeditionary corps of French Foreign Legion will arrive in back on French territory in either in a body box or as wounded, right? Anyways, let's continue. And of course, West continues escalation against Russia on daily basis. I just reported about big step towards this escalation, well, Zelensky on one hand is asking for more money, more weapons. On the other hand, is very much emboldened and threatening Russia with long-range strikes, literally on daily basis. Hard to understand what the hell is going on in Kiev among these Western proxies like Zelensky and the others. He was probably on a good mood or optimistic mood just yesterday, and he began demanding from NATO member states not just the Gripen fighter jets, but also Rafale fighters from France and F-16s too. Right? Mirage 2000s already been transferred formally to Kyiv regime. In reality, they are piloted by French pilots, most likely NATO pilots. Also, F-16s were deployed, and those US and French squadrons already suffered significant losses. There is only talks about Swedish Gripen planes to be deployed, and I have not seen no reports. France is promising to transfer Rafale planes formally to Kyiv regime, but yet again, Macron is on. Macron thinks he is a freaking Napoleon, by the way, right? And he might do anything if he's authorizing, or if he already ordered 2,000 troops of his French Foreign Legions to be deployed on a Kyiv-controlled territory. Then why should we be surprised if French aviation will be deployed to support these ground forces, right? So that's the situation, by the way. When Zelensky says, I need these planes, maybe that is a kind of indicator that those planes possibly already being deployed close to borders of Ukraine, right? And can be used against Russia just anytime. Maybe that's exactly the case, and Kyiv regime will just take it on itself, right? That it was a Kyiv regime, not NATO countries that use those planes. Maybe that's the game plan behind these statements. Well, might be. Also, Zelensky is pushing Trump to reverse Tomahawk decision. I did mention partially these reports in today's first update. Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky has said once again that US should provide Kyiv with long-range weapons capable of striking targets deep inside Russia. Zelensky praised the move in a phone interview with Axios on Monday, move that earlier this month, US President Donald Trump ruled out supplies of Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine, which have a maximum range around 2,500 kilometers after a phone call with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. Despite rejecting Zelensky's request, Trump later introduced sanctions on Russian oil companies Rosneft and Lukoil, and Zelensky praised basically this move of Trump during the interview with Axios, saying that economic restrictions will make a difference. The Ukrainian leader, who has long been pushing for Washington to provide Tomahawks, and it's not Zelensky, by the way, it's a globalist, right? In reality. He said, however, that sanctions were not enough to deter Moscow. President Trump is concerned about escalation, but I think that if there are no negotiations, there will be an escalation anyways. I think that if Putin does not stop, we need something to stop him. Sanctions is one such a weapon, but we also need long-range missiles capable of hitting energy facilities deep inside Russia. He said. He also emphasized that Trump, during their meeting earlier in October, that Kyiv would not necessarily have to use the US supplied munition immediately. And so, well, because we already know the drill, isn't it? Whenever there is talks beginning about certain weapon systems, usually those weapons arriving in Europe from US and then are deployed against Russia, right? And there's so much talk about Tomahawks, but we are forgetting that US already authorized, by the way, transfer of 3,000 plus cruise missiles with a shorter range, but nevertheless cruise missiles to Kyiv regime. And US also has in its inventory hundreds and thousands of other weapon systems, right? Not the Tomahawks, but no any less capable ones, right? Tomahawk may actually not even be suitable to be deployed against Russia because US only has, according to reports, like 6 Typhoon launchers or something. US itself only has 6 Typhoon launchers that can be used to launch these missiles from the ground, because originally Tomahawk missile is a Navy-based, right? It was created for US warships, US Navy. So therefore, because Zelensky began again talking about long-range missiles, I think certain number of these long-range weapon systems most likely already being transferred to towards the Europe by US, or maybe those missiles are on Kyiv control territory too. I don't know, but we will, I guess, find out soon. Unfortunately, there is every reason to believe that NATO countries will go ahead with the next phase of escalation against Russia in a relatively short time. And there is not a single indicator to be hopeful that we will see de-escalation anytime soon. So it is what it is. And while on one hand, as I said, Zelensky is bragging about winning the war and striking Russia all over their places and demanding aircraft and missiles and this and that. According to media reports, Kyiv regime only has funds to pay salaries and the pensions to the residents of on Kyiv controlled territory for a couple of months, and that's about it, right? And when I say, and many others, by the way, when we say, commentators and everyone else, that without Western direct aid, Kyiv regime wouldn't be able to withstand its own weight more than a couple of months, we are actually factually correct, right? And this information is just additional indicator of that. So Ukraine may be forced to stop paying pensions and salaries to civil servants if it does not receive financial assistance by the spring of 2026, according to Spanish newspaper País, El País, that is, isn't it? Citing EU sources, if Ukraine, and this is quote, if Ukraine does not receive financial assistance by spring next year, it will find itself in a difficult situation and may be forced to stop paying civil servants salaries and also pensions. The publication cites sources as saying. As the publication also notes, after the idea of using frozen Russian assets failed due to veto from Belgium, the European Commission is exploring other ways to provide Kyiv regime with the necessary economic support. The EU must act quickly European Commission must act quickly to present a proposal to EU member states that will enable them to make a decision at December summit. And I remind you, dear friends, just a couple of days ago, last week, there was a summit, EU summit, where EU leaders were discussing possibility to, actually authorize stealing of the frozen Russian assets. They were talking about some 140 billion euros, right? And Belgium blocked that agreement because Belgium was demanding from other countries in Europe to share their responsibility and to share the bargain. And Belgian Prime Minister was openly saying, I mean, if one day Russia will come and tell us, give us our money, then, what, guys, you tip in too. Give us a guarantee that you will also share the responsibility and you will also give us some money to give it back to Russians. And European countries say no, man. European countries say no. And, Belgian government also then in that case, as it was said earlier, Belgium blocked the deal, right? And in December, EU leaders will discuss this subject once again. And they will try, meanwhile, to pressure leadership of Belgium as much as they possibly can to force them to agree on the stealing of Russian assets. We will see what is going to happen. But if they failed, then you guess who's going to pay for salaries of civil servants on a Kyiv-controlled territory, and there are salaries for pensioners and for everybody, basically. It's EU taxpayers again, right? And we are talking about additional tens of billions of, over 100 billion, by the way, additional tens of billions of dollars, right? Because from every 10 billion that EU sends to Kyiv regime, most likely at least half is stolen straight away. So if Kyiv regime said, well, we need some 50 billion to pay salaries and this and that, probably you have to send 100 billion because they will steal at least half of it, right? At least. So yes, if in December EU leaders would not agree once again to officially make it official and steal frozen Russian assets, then in that case, I guess European countries, one after another, maybe with very few exceptions, like Hungary and Slovakia, I don't think they will pay anything, but others probably will tip in some 10 billion, some 20, some maybe just a billion or two, right? So that Kyiv regime will have funds to prolong its existence, basically. That's all, right? So we will find out. We will find out soon. But clearly, this information is just additional factual confirmation of what many of us were saying, that without direct Western assistance, financial, military, political assistance, Kyiv regime would not exist whatsoever. It would collapse under its own weight, right? Only reason why this so-called Ukraine exists right now is because these hundreds of billions of dollars in financial aid that our NATO countries are providing. It is what it is. And the difference, before I continue, let me notice, if I may, that if you 92 members of our community are on live stream at this moment on YouTube. I cannot see on Rumble. Thank you all, dear friends, for your attention. And well, if you can, and if you want to, if you like my work, dear friends, if you can, and if you want to support, you can do it, as many of you know, through several means. You can donate to this project through PayPal platform or Boosty platform. You can subscribe to my Patreon and Boosty pages. That will be also, of course, a great support, and you can use your level of monthly support there. And there is during the live streams, there is a super chat feature on Rumble that you can use, and you can also become premium subscriber. And there is a crypto option too. All the links under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And so yes, hopefully this project will receive some support today. Maybe not, but anyways, let's continue now, dear friends. In any case, I'm trying my best to provide some original content, by the way, right? You want a real talk, or you want to see real emotions or a real discussion, then you're more than welcome. If you want to see something else, there is a lot of options, right? Anyways, let's continue with some other news. And what is the next? Lavrov, by the way, foreign minister of Russian Federation, went to Belarus today to participate in an international conference of Eurasian security, and he made quite a few statements there. Let me give you some key points. So Lavrov stated during his speech that NATO expansion does not stop for a minute. The West does not hide its preparations for a major European war. Obviously, they are preparing to fight Russia. NATO's increased activity in the Arctic cannot but cause concern. This territory must be peaceful. Moscow hopes that US President Donald Trump remains committed to resolving the conflict in Ukraine through a meeting in Alaska. Okay, I think Russian leadership believes in Trump more than Trump believes in Trump, right? And they're more than diehard Trump supporters believing in Trump, which is quite fascinating stuff to observe, by the way. But yet again, who am I to say anything about it? There is, I think Trump is giving some inspiration to some Russian leaders. They are seeking this close relationships with him. Okay. Moscow hopes that U.S. President Donald Trump remains committed, I already said that, to resolving the conflict in Ukraine through a meeting in Alaska. NATO leadership is doing everything it can to pursue the United States to abandon the idea of settlement in Ukraine. Okay, Russian leadership is very keen to point out always, seems like, that it's a European leadership that is destructive, but somehow Russian leadership is refusing to point out destructive role of U.S. administration too. Yet again, maybe, hope is a very powerful emotion, isn't it? Hope is a very powerful thing, and maybe Russian leadership, is still hoping that they can achieve some agreements. They can reach some agreements with the Trump and be successful on that field. Okay. I don't think this is possible. I think this is a waste of time, pure waste of time, right? But it does at this point it does looks very strange, right? Because some people actually might get impression that Russian President Putin, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov, and some other officials are believing in Trump more than Trump himself believes in Trump, right? This is just not okay, I think, personally, right? This sort, what the hell is that? Is obsession of some sort, or what's going on here? I don't know, but despite all the negativity, all the hostile steps that Trump took, you can see what kind of language is being used, right, by Russian foreign minister. And okay, maybe I'm just too stupid to understand what the hell is going on there. But probably that is the case, right? Okay. But nevertheless, let's continue. Russia has no intention to attacking NATO and the EU countries. Moscow is prepared to enshrine this in future security guarantees. Okay, Moscow hopes that they will there will be some security guarantees for Russia, and West will honor these agreements. Okay, Minsk one, Minsk two, and all the other agreements were not enough. We need some more, man. Give us Minsk three, Minsk four, Minsk five, man. Minsk 1,000, Minsk 2,000. Just bring it on, right? We can, we can take it. NATO is seeking to take outer place in the Pacific Ocean by undermining the foundations of the security architecture. Their goal is to curtail China and isolate Russia. Okay. Approaches to peace in Ukraine have been developed on the basis of US proposals. US. Oh, great, great. The threat from NATO also comes from Asia Pacific region, and you know what? Is Russian leadership is forgetting time to time that US is a major force in NATO. There is no NATO without US, right? They understand this, isn't it? That NATO is US and US is NATO, right? There is no separation between them. But for whatever reason, Russian leadership is, making this distinguish. They are distinguishing that it's NATO, it's a European leaders that are this destructive, but U.S. leadership, we have some, we do business there. There was Alaska Summit, Anchorage, great city, and probably they had a great time there. They were impressed with this B-2 flying over, and I don't know, F-35s and stuff, and okay. Russia opposes their transformation of Eurasia into NATO fiefdom, whatever that is. I don't know what this word means. FIEFDOM, fiefdom. There are no prospects of meaningful dialogue with the current elites of the EU countries. Okay. Yet again, EU, you see, there is no prospects for meaningful dialogue with the EU countries, but I guess because US is not mentioned in a similar way, I guess Moscow sees possibilities of meaningful dialogue with the US administration, with the Trump and all the others, by the way. Oh, great. Okay, let's continue this way and we will find out, right? What is going to happen. RT is also reporting that Hungary, meanwhile, is seeking anti-Ukraine alliance, according to Orban's aide. So Hungary wants to form an anti-Ukraine alliance within the EU by joining forces with Slovakia and the Czech Republic. Senior political advisor to Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has stated Balázs Orban, who is not related to the Prime Minister, told the politic, but he's an advisor or something, right? Senior political advisor to Prime Minister Orban. They just have similar surnames. So Balázs Orban told the Politico on Tuesday that Budapest, Bratislava, and Prague should align their stance ahead of meeting of EU leaders, including by holding trilateral pre-summit talks. His suggestion came after his right-wing ANO party, led by Andrej Babiš, prevailed in the Czech elections earlier this month. During his campaign, Babiš echoed their positions of the Viktor Orban and Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico, both of whom have refused to send military aid to Kiev, instead calling for a peaceful resolution to the Ukraine conflict and closer economic cooperation with Russia. When asked about the feasibility of Ukraine skeptic bloc operating in the EU Council, the advisor said, I think it will come and be more and more visible. Okay, by the way, in regards to Hungary and Slovakia, under the current leadership there, these two countries definitely are demonstrating that they don't want no further escalation to happen. Czech Republic is a bit different during the recent elections. Yes, sir, this Babiš won, his party won, but in general, Czech elites already like demonstrated numerous times that they are as Russophobe as one may get, right? So therefore, maybe Budapest and Bratislava are mistaken there if they think that Prague is on the same page with them or will be on the same page with them. No, I just don't think this is realistic. I don't think so, but we will find out. We will find out soon. Yet again, I mean. Meanwhile, meanwhile, greater superpower, by the way, of the Western world, great superpower from NATO and from EU, Estonia is making headlines again, and Estonia's defense minister criticized Spain while being in Spain and talking to Spanish media, and demanded from Spain more money to be spent on defense. So only defense minister of superpower, by the way, can act disrespectfully towards the country while being in that country, right? So, well, Madrid has to do some homework there, I guess. So Estonian defense minister Hanno Pevkur criticized Spain for what he called insufficient military spending, which amounts to only 2% of GDP there. However, Pevkur indicated that his country intends to reach 5% by 2026. And we have quote even. So I'm afraid 2% of GDP spent on defense is not enough for Spain. I can't say what percentage is correct. Spanish experts should calculate whether it's a 3 or 3.5%. Pavkur said in an interview with a Spanish newspaper País. He also added that last week NATO held their first situation review, which showed that much remains to be done in all alliance countries. According to Pavkur, Estonia defense spending currently stands at 3.3%, 3.4% of GDP, but should rise to 5% of GDP in 2026. Exceed 5.6% in 4 years. And so, yes, I mean, great achievement for Spain, by the way, I would say, when nowadays Madrid being lectured by Estonia's defense minister, even nothing to be said about all the wonderful things that Trump is saying about Spain. So, yes. Well done, Spanish elites. Так держать. What else can I say, man? And так держать means continue that way, you know. So yes, I think it's funny news, isn't it? It's a funny news. There is a great deal of mess in EU among European countries, and I think this nonsensical so-called alliance of European countries are not going to last long, man. This is absolutely not natural. What being created in Europe, especially when EU and NATO are taking more and more sovereignty from the nations there, and this cannot continue forever, right? And this is definitely not normal when some freaking chihuahua is lecturing Spain, by the way, what to do when and how. I mean, how embarrassing that should be for Spain, man, Spanish people, man. After all, Spain was one of the leading countries in Europe, by the way, not just from military standpoint, but also from cultural standpoint. And Spain has great history and great achievements and so on, right? And I guess, I don't know, my level of decline of self-respect in Spain is in such a level now that even Estonia's defense minister thinks that he can shit on Spanish leadership and Spain this openly, while giving interview to Spanish media, and he will, and nothing will happen, and maybe nothing will happen. I mean, I don't know. If you are from Spain and if you heard any comment from Spanish leadership about this nonsensical acting from Estonia, please share the information about it. But nevertheless, when it comes to Estonia, by the way, I have one more news for you on that Chihuahua. So the Estonian military reported they're intercepting a drone near the Raiedo military town in the southeast of the country. According to the broadcasting company ERR or ERR, their device was shut down, but it was later not found on the ground. So, yes, I mean, these globalists and globalist control regimes have to constantly put some fuel on this fire, right, of Russian threat, and Russians are coming, and Russian drones and Russian planes, and they're all Russians, and we being attacked, and полундра, спасайся, все дела. And so they are coming up with more and more nonsensical stuff, by the way. I mean, probably they are struggling with the fantasy, and eventually that's the level that they are right now, that they are seeing some stuff, by the way, that are not there. They are intercepting drones that are then disappearing, right? They are seeing planes that are in Estonian airspace for like minutes and minutes, like 12 minutes on end, or 18 minutes, right? Those MiG-31s, by the way, that will cross Estonia like several times over in that 12 or 18 minutes. And so, yes, that's where we are right now. But of course, NATO will use anything. NATO will use anything, man. Oh, you see, drones were shut down, by the way, next to US military base in Estonia. We have to bring more weapons. We have to bring more planes. And that's exactly what is happening, by the way. At this point, I guess after escalation, after this false flag operations, series of false flag operations with alleged Russian drones and planes and so on, a number of fighter jets, for example, that NATO deployed towards the Russian borders, I mean, increased drastically, right? And at any given point, I think NATO has at least like 200 or 300 fighter jets on Russian borders, potentially more even, which is definitely not normal, and only justification for this presence of offensive weaponry, offensive weapon systems is these stories, these false flag operations, right? That's how they are justifying increased presence of their militaries on the Russian borders. And they're not being challenged in the West. No one is criticizing them. No one is asking critical questions. So therefore, I guess they will continue, build up their military. And at one point, probably they will think, they are now in powerful enough position to go ahead with their direct escalation with Russia, direct involvement, open involvement in this war. And I guess we will end up at one point exactly in that situation, when Russian militaries will fight NATO militaries directly, openly, right? And then who knows how things are going to go down, But to continue, dear friends, of course, these false flag operations are one thing, but also there is a big topic in the West, among Western elites, Western so-called media, which is this constant attempts to terrify people in Europe that Russians are coming, Russians going to kill us all, Russians going to do this and that, and Russian planes, Russian drones, Russian tanks, man, everything Russian. For example, British media, Daily Express, by the way, in this particular case, began scaring people in UK with the story what would happen if London being struck by nuclear weapons, right? So possible strike by intercontinental ballistic missile similar to Russian Topol missile on London could result in the loss of up to 1 million people and widespread destruction for tens of kilometers around, writes British publication Daily Express. And I know, dear friends, Daily Express is a not serious media outlet, right? It's a tabloid, isn't it? But people are reading this kind of crap. Many people, I mean, Daily Mail, Daily Express, and that kind of stuff there. Even media outlets, so-called media outlets that used to have a reputation, Guardian and Economist and so on, even they are garbage nowadays. So what to say about these tabloids, right? But nevertheless, people are reading this stuff, and they are scared and they are terrified, and that's exactly the reason why these kind of articles are being published, right? We can laugh about it, how stupid the editorial board of Daily Express is, but they are doing the job, right? What they've been ordered by globalists or whomever is pulling the strings, right, in Europe. Their target is to terrify people. And I can understand why someone will be scared to the death when that someone opens the newspaper and sees, wow, I mean, if a Russian missile struck London, a million people gonna die straight away, and tens of kilometers around gonna disappear, and this and that, and well, of course, this scared public can be then easily manipulated, right? Keir Starmer will come out and say, you know what, guys, you don't want to die, isn't it? Only way to save you is to allocate another 100 billion to this freaking regime in Kiev, Zelensky. I mean, he needs this money more than we do, right? So let's do this, and these scared people will say nothing. Okay, just save us, keep us safe. While none of them understands that Russia has no freaking intention to strike London, right? Why would Russia strike London, man? For what exactly? Oh, блин. Anyways, let's continue. So a possible strike by intercontinental ballistic missile, similar to Russian Tupolev missile on London, could result in this tremendous loss of up to 1 million people and widespread destruction. Hypothetical nuclear strike on London would result in massive human casualties and destructions, according to Express. Okay. Daily Express also reports that if Russia launched this Topol or Tupolev ballistic missile attack, London gonna be decimated, basically. Authors of their publication point out that American nuclear weapons will already be stationed in their Suffolk air base. They argue that this will place Britain at the forefront of a potential military confrontation between Russia and the United States. The country will remain a potential target for a nuclear strike. According to the campaign for nuclear disarmament, if a warhead hits the city center, the explosion would generate temperatures up to 1 million degrees Celsius. Residents as far as 11 kilometers from the epicenter could suffer burns and other injuries. The report's authors clarified that the post-impact firestorm would consume oxygen, and the countries, any fire consumes oxygen, man. Well, what are they talking about? And the country's healthcare, because there is no fire without oxygen, right? And the country's healthcare system would be unable to cope with their enormous number of casualties within a radius of up to 17 kilometers from the blast. Earlier, and this article continues and continues. Yet again, I'm sharing this information just to demonstrate what garbage people being fed in the West, right? And in this particular case, it's a British tabloid. I'm quite sure German so-called media, French so-called media, Italian so-called media, Dutch and Spanish and all the others are doing the same stuff, by the way. They're scaring people so much so that those people are saying, okay, for everything, just keep us safe, right? And take our money, do whatever you want, give it to Zelensky or whomever, just keep us safe. And that's exactly what their governments are doing. They're taking their money, right? And enriching military industrial complex, enriching themselves, and enriching, of course, their proxies too. Well, it is what it is, man. While in reality, we all understand, isn't it, that if NATO will not use nukes against Russia. There is not even a theoretical possibility. There is not even theoretical chance that Russia will use nukes against anybody, against any NATO member state. That's impossible, man. No one will even think about striking in Kremlin, by the way, or among decision makers here in Russia. No one would even think about using nuclear weapons against NATO country, right? In any other circumstances, but if NATO used nukes against Russia. We all understand this, isn't it? But tell this to people that are believing in this kind of nonsense from Western so-called media. Anyways, the Vzгляд newspaper is reporting, dear friends, that as I mentioned in today's first update this morning, Kazakhstan's Ministry of Energy has assessed the possibility of buying out Lukoil assets in the country. As you know, Lukoil is under sanctions of US, and the company already made statements that they are planning to get rid of foreign assets, and they have assets all over the world, including in Kazakhstan, for example. And Kazakh cabinet of ministers has not yet held their discussion on their possible purchase of the Kazakh assets of the Russian company Lukoil, but their decision on this issue is expected to be made in the coming days, stated Kazakh energy minister Yerlan Akenshenov. And most likely, some Kazakhstani company or maybe even government will buy Lukoil's assets because they don't want any disruption in the energy sector, of course. And for Kazakhstan, energy sector is a big deal. Kazakhstan is very rich, quite rich. With the oil, it's a big oil exporter, of course, and they don't need no disruptions in this field. So they will buy. Have no doubts about it. Lukoil's assets, there may be some trade. Lukoil will ask for this amount of money. Kazakhstan side will say, no, we will buy it for less. Eventually, they will find agreement. I guess Lukoil will sell its assets in Romania also and elsewhere. Well, unfortunate. It's a forced decision on part of Lukoil, but well, I think they should think before, at least from now on, before investing anywhere, right? Maybe it would be better if Lukoil and Rosneft and all the other Russian companies just stay here in Russia and invest in Russia, right? And not necessarily just in energy field. They have a lot of money, so why wouldn't they invest in some other sector? Why not? At least they would not lose these assets as they're gonna do now as a result of criminal actions of the Washington and their other capitals of NATO, right? And as I reported earlier, dear friends, Lukoil will ask US to extend its license to curtail its operations. Probably US will let them sell these assets. And also, it's not just Lukoil, but Rosneft too. US has given Germany 6 months deadline to sort the Rosneft issue, according to Bloomberg. So Rosneft was involved in Germany's energy sector big time, and they will lose their assets now there and elsewhere too, I guess, right? Yet again, only question I have, what leadership of these companies were thinking. They are making tremendous amount of money, right? CEOs and all these top managers and stuff. And what for? If they cannot do like simple analytics, then why they being given this much money, man, right? Didn't they know that they would come, that West will attack Russia, West will start war against Russia? Didn't they know about it? Of course, they should know. Maybe they did not know, but they should knew it, right? I knew that this day would come, right? But nevertheless, they invested billions and billions, tens of billions actually, all over the world, all these Russian companies, and they're gonna lose significant part of it now. right? Because obviously when you're being cornered, you are selling stuff if you have to, not necessarily on a market, what market value is. You are selling stuff much lower. Anyways, it is what it is, man. Hopefully, Russian companies will learn the lesson. Rich Russians will learn the lesson, and they will never ever invest anything, even single penny, into Western economies. But yet again, will they? Will they learn the lesson? I don't know. I don't think so. Actually, they cannot learn the lesson. By the way, if they are that stupid that they invested so much in the Western economies, man, I don't think they're gonna become clever from now on. And that raises another question: how these people end up being in charge of these big companies? How these stupid people end up being in charge of these giants? For what exactly they are on that position? For what exactly achievements? It's a good question, I think. Anyways, let's continue. RIA Novosti is reporting that US has struck another 4 vessels, by the way, right? Killing 6 more people, right? US military has struck ships involved in so-called drug trafficking in the Eastern Pacific. US Secretary of War Pat Hexed announced on a social media account the strikes destroyed 4 vessels operated by recognized terrorist organizations involving drug traffickers. A total of 14 drug trafficking suspects were eliminated. So 14 more people were killed, by the way, not 6. 14 more people were executed, basically, under the orders of Trump. Okay, I mean, I am speechless, man. US president is authorizing executions of the people left and right without providing any evidences of any wrongdoing by these people. Well, what I can say about it, man, I don't know. It's insane, and I don't know. Maybe you believe, dear friends, that these are drug traffickers, but I don't. I just simply don't believe in that. Show me their evidences, right? Already we have seen reports that Colombian fishermen were killed. There are fishermen from Trinidad and Tobago. Lifelong fishermen were killed, by the way, with these strikes. So I don't take words of anybody from US leadership for face value. And no one should, I think, right? So yes, this execution of people continues, and soon probably no fishing boat will dare to go into sea in Caribbean, by the way, because they might get killed, man. US is just killing people left and right while preparing for a war with Venezuela, and preparations are accelerating because, according to reports, there was already third US bomber mission in less than 2 weeks. US Air Force has sent 2 B-1B Lancer bombers flying from South Dakota Ellsworth Air Force Base to Caribbean. Aircraft were detected about 20 miles of Venezuela's coast, closest approach to their mainland so far. Well, they are getting ready, by the way. They are getting ready. Aircraft carrier is being sent to that direction. Maybe another aircraft carrier will join this strike group that US already has assembled off coast of Venezuela. And maybe in a few days, maybe in a few weeks, but at this point, it seems like US war on Venezuela is absolutely inevitable. And as I have said a million times before, if people of Venezuela will fight, not for a government, but for their freedom and their freedom of their country, in that case, US militaries, I don't think will be able to defeat people of Venezuela. And if they will fight, yet again, if people will fight there, they will receive support and assistance from many friendly nations, many friendly organizations, including from PMCs, of course. And when it comes to PMCs, I did already reported this morning, dear friends, that according to tracking sources, and this is allegedly, let's use this word, allegedly, Russian IL-76 heavy transport plane landed in Venezuela, and this plane earlier was associated. This plane and the avia company of Chitor Trans, to whom this plane belongs, was affiliated in the past, at least, with the Wagner PMC. And rumors are now that Wagner deployed its specialists right into Venezuela. Well, might be the case, by the way. I really don't know. I'm constantly monitoring different media outlets, different channels on YouTube, Telegram, just everywhere I can, right? And I did not really see enough evidences of presence of the Wagner PMC in Venezuela. So therefore, I'm a little skeptical of this report, but because information is being shared publicly, I'm reporting about it. Might be the case because you remember, by the way, of course, U.S. militaries killed around 200 Wagner PMC members as a result of airstrike in Syria, in Deir Zor area, isn't it? That happened not far away from gas fields. Those U.S. airstrike was called in by Kurdish militiamen, by Kurdish forces, and I don't think Wagnerites forget about this or forgive this crime that was committed by U.S. militaries. Wagner PMC was not attacking U.S. militaries. They were operating on Syrian territory on the invitation of a legit government there, right? And I would not be surprised at all if certain groups of Wagner PMC, maybe under the orders of their company itself, PMC itself, maybe as a volunteers, went to Venezuela, right, to revenge for the lives of their comrades and to fight against Americans directly. Well, might be the case, by the way. But yet again, at this point, there are not enough evidences to know for sure what the hell is going on there. So I will copy now, dear friends. There was a 2 super chat on Rumble from Banzo Beans, and I will copy the screens and share in few minutes, dear friends. So let's continue. And meanwhile, while U.S. militaries are preparing for war with Venezuela, potentially even with Colombia, and reports are that, U.S. senators openly are saying that Venezuela is just the beginning. They're gonna do some stuff with Colombia regime there in Colombia, their government. They're gonna assault Cuba. They're gonna basically recolonize all southern hemisphere. And U.S. senators are saying this openly, right? I reported this morning. I shared video even of one of the U.S. senators talking about it, right? But nevertheless, U.S. president, meanwhile, is in Japan. He was prized by new Japanese prime minister, Sanae Takaishi. She went as far as to nominate Donald Trump, according to reports, for a Nobel Peace Prize. So this circus is beginning again, right? And now every other day, Trump's administration will demand from their proxies from all over the world to prize Trump and nominate him for Nobel Peace Prize. So Japan opened the movie, right? Opened this freak show. Okay, but Trump himself, meanwhile, went to I don't know insult people of Japan publicly and big time because while giving the speech, he said that U.S. had a small conflict with Japan. You might have heard about it. That's a quote, by the way. That's what Trump said. And I think this is insult, by the way. This is insult to even U.S. citizens who fought and died fighting against Japanese forces in the Second World War. And this statement is also insult to hundreds of thousands of Japanese civilians that were exterminated by US, right? And not just with the nuclear weapons, by the way, although, of course, that was a tremendous crime committed by US when, for no reason whatsoever, they dropped just to demonstrate the force, but just to test the nuclear weapons, by the way. That's what it was, right? You might hear all sorts of justifications from Americans that, well, if we didn't drop nukes and did not kill these hundreds of thousands of people, civilians in a nuclear explosion, then thousands of our troops would die. You know, it's a war, for God's sake. Just to save your troops, you're not committing atrocities. You are not killing civilians, right? But Western elites operating differently, they killed a lot of civilians. And they committed actually genocide of not just Japanese people, but German people too. I mean, you'll remember what happened in Dresden, right? When Brits and Americans killed, according to reports, over 100,000 civilians. They just burned them alive, right? They incinerated city. And they knew this was, from military standpoint, this was a change, nothing. But they wanted to terrorize people, right, of Germany, and they literally burned alive tens of thousands of residents of Dresden. But in this particular case, Trump went to say about Japan. There was, just a little conflict. Nothing happened. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. Let me give you a video of his statement. So this is a video, by the way.
Been with us all the way, and it's amazing that we had a little conflict with Japan. You may have heard about it, and that after such a horrible thing, yet the two nations are the closest friends and partners that you can be, and based on a shared commitment to freedom, democracy, security, prosperity, civilization, and just basic human achievement. It's amazing, actually.
So I don't know. What can I say, man? If I was American, I would say this is insulting to American veterans, to everybody who suffered from Japanese militaries, to call that war, man. Just a little conflict. And also this is insult to all the civilians that Americans killed for no reason whatsoever, because from military standpoint, it was not justified. No. You cannot justify killing of civilians while saying that you saved the life of your military personnel by doing so. I mean, are you serious? What kind of justification is that? Unbelievable, man. Anyways, dear friends, let's continue with some more news. And very same Trump went to say that the U.S. will no longer be politically correct in defending the country. Is if U.S. was ever politically correct, or if U.S. was ever honoring any agreements that it was signing up for. I don't know what Trump is talking about, but that's what he says. So United States will no longer be politically correct in defending the country and intends to win wars. White House President Donald Trump said, and we have quote here, unlike previous administrations, we will not be politically correct. When it comes to defending the United States, we will no longer be politically correct. We will defend our country by any means necessary, starting today. When we win wars, we will do so like no one has ever done before. He told the service members of the aircraft carrier USS George Washington at the US naval base in Yokosuka near Tokyo. Trump claims that US armed forces are most powerful in history and will become even more powerful in the near future. He also announced that first batch of American missiles for Japanese F-35 fighters will be delivered this week. Okay, by the way, I mean, okay, it's a freak show. I'm telling you, man. This world has been turned into some freak show, and stage, geopolitical stage being turned into a freak show. And due to these freaks, man, so many people are dying all over the world, right? And who is the instigator of all this death and destruction? It's Western elites. I mean, there is no way around it, man. It's Western elites, right? It's always Western elites, man. Whenever you are seeing some massive death and destruction, it's always Western elites. It is what it is. Last 300 to 500 years, man. Just look at the history, man. It's always Western elites, man. Nothing to be said about First World War and Second World War. I mean, hardly anyone can argue that that was Western elites too, right? Or what about extermination of almost complete extermination of indigenous people in Americas, man? No, both South and North. No one knows how many millions of people died as a result of invasion of the Europeans, right? There. What about Africa, by the way? Southeast Asia. Anyways, it is what it is, man. We all know history, so until Western elites are allowed to act any way they want with impunity, they will continue to do so because that's what they know and that's what they do. Meanwhile, a few economical news, dear friends. Interesting, good news about aerospace industry of Russia and India. So Moscow and New Delhi have agreed on the production of Superjet 100 civil aircraft in India. So Russian side and Indian side. From Indian side, it's Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. From Russian side, it's UAC. What the hell is? I cannot tell you what. Superjet, Sukhoi, let's say Sukhoi OKB, man. It's a conglomerate of different avio companies. From Russian side and the Indian side, by the way, there is agreement reached. Memorandum was signed of understanding on this matter. Indian State Corporation might produce aircraft for domestic customers. This will be the first case of a full passenger aircraft production in India. The last similar project in the country was completed in 1988, which is quite interesting. And of course, cooperation between Russian and Indian companies takes back decades, obviously. And I did not know, by the way, for example, that last time India built domestically civilian plane was in 1988. Long time. And maybe Superjet is going to be beginning of this cooperation. And soon, once Russian new Russian planes will all the tests will receive all the certifications, maybe those planes will be produced in India also. right? Together with the Russian side. In any case, sir, this is a good news, of course. And when it comes to India, dear friends, we have this report that, according to Bloomberg, Prime Minister of India Modi did not went to ASEAN summit in personally, only participate via video link because he did not wanted to end up next to Trump. According to Bloomberg, reason for this is that Modi did not wanted Trump to brag about his role in the escalation between India and Pakistan during the recent conflict. But same time, I guess Modi did not want it to be seen next to Trump, and to, I mean, you have to, if you are meeting someone, I mean, you're not gonna smash the freaking face of that someone, even if you hate that person. You know, I'm talking about politicians. On the streets, you can do this, of course, and you should do this. If you don't like someone and if there is an argument, just do whatever you have to do. But politicians cannot act that way, and I guess Modi was trying to avoid smiling next to Trump and shaking his hand and that kind of stuff. By the way, not just because of his Trump's constant talk about his role in the escalation between India and Pakistan, but also because of all the bullying and all the negativity that Trump generated against India, right? And well, reports are, by the way, that Washington actually forced India to submission and forced it to cut down purchases of Russian energy to zero towards the end of this year, beginning of the next year. At the same time, we have reports that India is kind of, that this is not true, and India will continue to purchase Russian oil. I don't know what is going to happen. Let's see, right? We will find out. But in any case, Modi had many reasons not to have a meeting with Trump, and I can believe that that's the reason why Modi did not go to Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, where this ASEAN summit took place just a couple of days ago. But US itself, meanwhile, is losing jobs, by the way, big time. And we have this report today that Amazon is about to cut up to 30,000 employees in its biggest layoff to date. Information is coming from Reuters. The workforce reduction will surpass the 27,000 jobs cut in 2022. The layoffs are expected to hit multiple divisions, including HR, device manufacturing, and their cloud division. And well, I think this is a big deal. People are going to be replaced by robots, by AI and robots, right? And when I was reading this news, I remember recent statements of Bernie Sanders, US senator. He's a senator, isn't it, Sanders? Who was saying recently that US will lose millions of jobs, by the way. US will lose millions of jobs in next decade due to AI and accelerated robotization of workplaces. And probably he was on point. I mean, it is difficult to say how many millions of jobs a US economy will lose, or the global economy for that matter, because this process not going to be exclusive for the US, right? Similar stuff will happen in most countries, right? Especially in developed countries, where companies can actually afford to buy simultaneously thousands of robots, right? To lay off the personnel. But yes, man, some tremendous changes are coming, isn't it? And millions of jobs, tens of millions of jobs actually, gonna be transferred from humans to robots in next decade. And well, after 10 years, by the way, we might not even be able to recognize the world that we are living, and that's how big change is gonna be potentially, right? So I think this is a interesting news, important news. So this is clearly indicator of what is about to come, isn't it? This. tsunami of layoffs all over the world, and transition of workplaces from humans to AI run robots. And also, U.S. President once again bragged about tariffs, by the way, while talking to militaries in Japan. And he once again said the tariffs have been so good, and the U.S. is taking so many trillions. Do you want to hear short video about it? I don't know. I believe I have a short clip on that. So I have a question, by the way. I mean, when Trump is bragging about these tariffs, why no one is asking, if you are receiving so many trillions as a result of tariffs, as you say, then why US is increasing its debt on unprecedented scale? If you have so many trillions, why you are increasing the debt? It's already 38 trillion plus, right? Why no one is asking him about it?
Because of November 5th, Election Day, but it's also because of tariffs. The tariffs have been so good. We're taking in trillions and trillions of dollars. I heard them before I came up. I heard you're all on television now. They're talking to all the networks, everybody's covering it. Look at these characters back. Look at all of them. And and they were talking about the tariffs. The tariffs nobody understood tariffs like I understood tariffs. And the tariffs are having people go into our country and spend tremendous numbers like we've never seen. And
so I don't even know what to say here, friends. Trump loves to brag about these tariffs, as if US is actually achieving like great success with this stuff. But it's a simple question, isn't it? It's a legit question. If you are receiving trillions and trillions, actually, due to tariffs directly or indirectly, then why on earth you are still increasing your debt? And during this first 10 months of Trump's administration, by the way, US debt is increasing on the same, basically almost on the same rate as during the COVID, when US was going wild, right? This helicopter money and this money and that money. And that's the level of US is borrowing at this particular point. So why, if you if you have trillions and trillions additional money, then what the hell, right? I don't know. Makes no sense, sir, to me personally. But we all understand there is no trillions, by the way. He's just making up stories, right? He's just making up stories, and because no one is questioning his stories, no one is challenging him, he just runs with these stories. And probably he will, he says some stuff so many times eventually that he himself begins to actually believe in this nonsense that they are receiving. He already said, like, we get $17 trillion, by the way. How many times he said that? So where is those 17 trillions? It's crazy, though. Crazy. And I will end new segment, dear friends, on this report that Qatari royal family now officially holds more property in London than King Charles himself. Their portfolio is valued at a staggering 2.4 billion pounds, with Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani alone owning about 1.6 billion of it. And so, yes, on one hand, well, quite interesting stuff there. Qatari royal family owns more real estate in London than a British royal family. But on the other hand, by the way, this is a golden trap, isn't it, for Qatari royals? For basically for many proxy regimes and there are many businesses in the proxies of British, right, or many proxies of the UK, they are forced. They have no choice but to invest heavy in the Western to invest heavy in UK in this particular case, and that's what they do, man. They're just forced to do it. Otherwise, well, London can take literally everything that Qatari royal family has, literally everything, right? And maybe after what Western elites did in regards to Russia, of course, this all sorts of royal families in the Middle East and other investors, by the way, in the West that don't really have much choice but to put their money in Western economies. Many of them are beginning to withdraw these funds, isn't it? Many economical experts are saying that there is an outflow of funds, right? And today, this might be the truth that Qatar owns more real estate in London than British royal family, but soon, and this is like pennies, by the way, in 2.4 billion pounds, it's a pennies, right, for either of them, British royal family or Qatari royal family. But in general, this outflow will definitely continue, and as Chinese influence grows, I think more and more representatives of political or financial or business elites outside of the Western world will diversify their investments and try to pull out whatever they have in the West and secure it with China. I think this process is already happening and is very much unstoppable. But the information itself is quite interesting that Qatari royal family owns more property in London than this so-called king of UK. Okay, that's about it, dear friends, for today's news segment. And dear friends, there was, as I already said, if you like the video, dear friends, if you like the news segment, please click that like button, leave some commentary. This might help to reach wider audience. And I see right now commentary from one of the members of community from Greece. China is very good at capitalism, but they are not capitalists. They are communists, I mean, leadership of China, but they are good businessmen. Let's say this way, right? China was always, historically speaking, always about doing business, doing trade, and they are good at it, right? And what China is doing, according to experts, according to articles that I read at least, China is creating walls, right? Not just in China, but all over the places, right? And China is planning to use gold, right, for trade. And gold is something that, of course, gives people more guarantees than just a paper, right? So some big changes are happening in this regard. Some big changes are happening. Already reports are that Saudi Arabia, by the way, began trading oil with China for yuans, right? And reports are that it's not even yuans, but gold. Maybe gold was counted in yuan, but still, by the way, right? So some tremendous changes are about to happen in terms of world financial system and the banking system, but we are not there yet, of course. And as I said, there was two super chat from Banzo Beans, John Dickinson, our moderator on Rumble and YouTube. And let me highlight, dear friends, this super chat. So Thank you very much, John, for super chat on Rumble and dollar donation. Uh, and comment is you huge difference between government messaging in the Western countries and Russia, as far as I can tell. Uh, Stop stop worry and fear in the population. Stir up worry and fear in the population versus calming self-confidence, neutral coincidence messaging. Well, in this regard, yes. In Russia, by the way, attitude of officials is that, you know what, just chill, man. Everything is under control. Don't worry about it. That's the message, right? Government here is definitely not trying to scare people whatsoever. It's exactly the opposite. Just chill. You know, we are watching, right, the stuff, and we will do whatever is necessary to make sure that everything gonna be fine. That's message from Russian government. In the West, by the way, it's a very different story. I mean, Russians are coming. Get ready. We all gonna die, and this kind of freaking nonsense, right? So yes, very different attitude, very different stuff. And well, dear friends, I'm living here in Russia, right? And I cannot imagine Russian society being happy if Russian president would act in a way that US president is acting, man, or if Russian president will talk in a way that US president does, or the Western, the so-called leaders, by the way, because it's here expectation is that leaders should act in a certain way, and they always have to be serious, and when they say something, it has to be weight there, right? So, but in the West, it's all about like, look at how tough I am and how I'm a decent, I am that, and this narcissistic freaking nonsense, right? Is in a core principle, seems like in the West, while here, just be cool, man, act normal, right? That's the way things are, and that's the way people are expecting leaders to behave. No one wants Putin to like come on air and began like stating how great he is, and how much he deserves no Nobel Peace Prize, and how much successful he is like nobody ever before, and that kind of stuff that Trump loves to say. And it's not just Trump; it's part of culture in the West, right? To act this way, like how tough you are, how bully you are, and this and that. Here, attitude is different, and they're on the point of messaging to public. Definitely, you are on point, John. Here, government tries to, send message that don't worry, everything is under control. In the West, it's all about Russians are coming, and be scared and be terrified, and that kind of stuff. And for them, by the way, in the West, it does works, isn't it? Because yet again, those elites that are scaring the people, they're not being challenged, right? They are doing whatever they want, and no one is challenging them on a serious scale. And there is also another super chat from Banzo Beans from John. Thank you very much, John, again for your super chat on Rumble and dollar donation. Don't you know Western societies are all meritocracies? Only their dollar cream make it to their top. So yeah, I mean, what can I say? That's what they think, isn't it? That only best of the best makes to the top, but in reality, we all know how it works. In reality, we all know how it works. Thank you very much, John. So there was no more super chat on Rumble. There was no questions through PayPal or Boosty to react on it. So therefore, dear friends, I will end this live stream on that term. Once again, if you find new segment informative and useful, please like the video, leave some commentary. It might help to deal with the algorithm and to reach a potentially wider audience, which could be helpful for further development of this project. Thank you very much for your attention. Have a wonderful day and take care. See you tomorrow.